Hello and welcome to Warblog. Today we're looking at the Battle of Tripoli Airport. With new improved light and dense urban tiles. They're different if you look at the older videos. But anyway, it's an older game and that's why I'm sort of covering it. I'm trying to get videos for sort of everything so that when you look down in the amongst all the blurb, you've got the video. There's no video at the moment, so I'm really just doing it to get a video. It's odd because you sort of think, well, I did this probably nearly 2 years ago, maybe not that long, but it's one of the earliest ones, and sort of think, oh, that's an old game. Well, but it's still relevant, and you sort of think, well, if I'd done it today, it would have felt fresh and new. But it sort of, it feels sort of, I don't want to say second rate, but it feels sort of, like an older part of the game portfolio or the scenario portfolio, and sort of, but at the same time I realised that it's not. Now the only thing I would say, upon reflection, is that these are all sort of battalions, but really then they should be companies. I mean, basically based on their strength factors of 2. These are not strong, and if I was to do this today, I would have probably made these all companies. So if you think of these as companies, especially when you're looking at these Zintani brigades here, essentially the Zintani brigades have provided the security for Tripoli Airport, and they're described on the Wikipedia as the Airport Security Battalion. And so if you would think of them as companies, so maybe I should go back and change them all to companies. That might make it make more sense. But anyway, so what we've got, essentially, let me get the little tool out, because hopefully it'll be a quick game, so there's not much to it. I think one of the things that appealed to me about this as a scenario is because they basically destroy Tripoli Airport. It says here it's reported that at least 90% of the airport's facilities and 20 aeroplanes were destroyed in the fighting. I've written up in the description, but that's quite a significant event for an international airport where, millions of tourists would have probably poured through year after year, to suddenly, be 90% destroyed. They'd probably be better off building a new airport over here or something. But anyway, so here we've got obviously this is the Libya Dawn coalition. We're not on now saver. So essentially, there's a lot of units. Now, I think the misleading thing here is you sort of think, well, there's going to be a front or a strategy or something along those lines. But basically, they're not. They basically attack the airport. Now, what these units do, I don't know. But I'm going to leave them there to sort of suggest that they're holding off a front along here, putting pressure on these units, which are the essentially the Zintani brigades. I wonder what they actually are. So this is Zintani, and these are the Libyan National Army, and this is the Warshef Hana, and these are the Zintani brigades. So essentially these are sort of facing each other off to some extent, and these people are essentially moving forward, and they're going to take the airport. And then, but the thing is, what happens sort of after that? There's some combat, and that happens on the 13th of July. And I assume that the combat is sort of ongoing, possibly not intensely on every day, but they're basically going to surround the airport and harass it, attack it. And then on the 23rd of August, the Zintani forces, they actually withdraw back into Tripoli. Is where they go, isn't it? So they withdraw from the airport, but they say that it was because they'd been instructed to do so by Parliament, which was later confirmed by parliamentary sources, according to Wikipedia. So they basically later retreat to Tripoli, and it's interesting, really, because I haven't really got any further in my thinking of the significance of this event, because obviously we know now, not so much that we didn't know then, but there's a very well defined border between the two sides, two opposing factions in Libya, and this would have been sort of part and parcel of the forming of that. And even now, I haven't got a clue who's on whose side. I just know there's two governments, so presumably, they're still around Tripoli, etc., etc. So essentially, these retreat back into Tripoli, and presumably these units all form a defensive line in Tripoli, and there's not a lot more action after that. But in theory, you could play this game through and possibly, looking at the number of units, take Tripoli out. I don't know. So anyway, let's not worry too much about all of that. Let's think of what we can do. That's interesting. I need to sort of fix that because it's an older game. It's got that first turn issue because all the units didn't have enough movement. If you look at them, their movement is 1. Now they do have movement of 3, but it's just the way that they were configured in those very early games. So on the first turn, they've got to recycle and then go. It's like they've already moved 2 of their movement points. In fact, if you wanted to limit someone's movement on the first turn, you could do that. But it was a thing that was typical with a lot of the other earlier games. So I'd need to go in and basically update all of these units so that they've got the appropriate movement. So that's the end of their turn. Now we're going to sit there. Now I think that they do actually end up taking parts of Tripoli. I think there is some sort of conflict. It says, following the retreat of the Zintani forces, the Islamists engaged in a campaign against the Zintanis in Tripoli, many of whom have now disappeared, which is a clarification that needs, this is something that needs clarification in the Wikipedia article, because if they disappeared, I mean, we don't want to sound daft, did they sort of suddenly just vanish? What do they mean by disappear? It sounds like a conjuring trick. The LROR and Central Shield also burnt houses of politicians that had been in the 2014 election. So I get the feeling that they sort of, started to engage in combat through Tripoli, and I think that's probably where they're still front line there at the moment. I don't know. I'd have to check that up, but I probably won't. So anyway, no one's going to really do anything yet because they're still just sitting there. Okay, so the Zintani. Did we do that? Did that work? It didn't seem to refresh. Okay. I see. It's one of these things I keep forgetting. The movement is quite restrictive through desert, and I sort of did that a while back to sort of to make desert a little more significant, because obviously driving along the roads is faster, but it sort of makes infantry pretty much not particularly good for driving through the desert, whereas if they drive through agricultural it's a bit easier, and but that's just sort of the way it is at the moment. The whole movement thing probably needs to be a bit reviewed a little to make everything a little more consistent, but it used to be that you could sort of go all over the place in the desert, and I changed that because desert, although it sounds really simple, if you drive a truck over the desert, you'll probably quite often do things like maybe break an axle or get a puncture, or suspension, steering. You don't need all the vehicles being compromised, but driving through the desert isn't as easy. Big sort of ravines and gullies and things like that. So it's slow going, but the roads are a lot faster. But I didn't think of that. I should have gone up this road. Maybe they should get back on the road. Okay, so now they can start harassing. And now they're actually dug in, so they're going to be 8. They're going to be doubled for, I wonder if it's light or medium. Back to game. That's light urban, so they're going to be doubled. In so that's going to be 16, but they're entrenched, which I think is 1.5, so they're going to be 24. I seem to remember I had a difficult time with this before, so 10. So that's not going to be a good attack, but what they will do, and this is what I quite like about this game, in these sort of situations you sort of find yourself forced to engage in a war of attrition, which is a very different sort of thing, which is unsuccessful at 1 to 3 odds. So they're quite tough in there. The Zintani brigades. Now, we could reinforce, but not going to. They could retreat, but we're not going to. So the battle for Tripoli Airport has started with sort of small arms fire and the odd mortar and RPG. I'm going to take al-Swani. I think al-Swani was this unit. Okay, so we've now almost surrounded the airport. So they're going to be defending at 24. The thing is, once they dig in, they will be at 32, 10, 4, 16, so it's going to be 1 to 2. So again, they're going to have to do attrition. Unsuccessful. Okay, what's there? They're dug in 4, so they've got 3 more turns before they come entrenched, and so I'm not going to do any fighting. I think I can actually engage in attrition. So let's see what happens if I do that. 1, 2, 3, 4 to 1, but it's an attrition. I could do an assault, but I'd lose my dug-inness, so I don't want to come out of my trenches. It's the way the sort of game works. I'm not happy with that, but that's just how it is. I won't go into details why, but I'm going to do an attrition. I think that will keep my dug-inness, so hopefully that will work, so we'll see. 4 to 1 odds, so I could have probably beaten them, maybe even eliminated them in a proper assault, but my dug-inness is 5 now, you know, so that's another thing about why I did the attrition rules, is to sort of allow for you to essentially do sort of small arms fire out. I mean, you know, 4 to 1 odds, that could have been quite good. We can fight back at weaker things, which means they can't just go around leaving these hexes completely empty. But as you can see, these units are already themselves digging in, so they're going to be pretty tough. I'm going to keep that. I'm going to try and do a bit of role play on this, in the sense that I'm going to leave something in there as sort of a, you know, representative of taking that tower. I don't want to make it too easy. But what we're now going to do is make sure we've got 2 in everything. Now, I could go for a full-out assault, but I try to avoid that these days. Let's just see what the numbers come up with. 1 to 1, damage 2. That's what they wanted. And at this rate, they might not even get out. Okay, well, they want to recover, so we're not going to do anything this turn. So they're back down to 1. So they're going to engage in more attrition. Again, it's a 1-to-1. We could go for it, and if we get the correct result on a 1-to-1, that would be an elimination because they've got nowhere to retreat. But I think it's going to be a game of just attrition, so we've got to get something, otherwise they'll completely recover. Again, 2. So they've now suffered beyond the ability to recover perfectly. And now they're all digging in. They sort of lost their opportunity to run away, really. We're just going to sit there, try and recover. Why does it keep not doing it when I click? I think it's because it's so close to the edge of my record frame. Unsuccessful. That's what they needed on that the last one. So they can now at least get down to recover for another turn. So amongst all this, obviously lots of damage is being done to the airport, and airplanes are being blown up. They've still got to trying to figure out how they can get out of there. But they are now entrenched as opposed to dug in. And of course there is the option of relieving them with these units here. They need some help. Bottom line. Because it's only going to go one way. It's a peculiar scenario, really, because I've never really sort of had a situation where I had enough units to do us around and to sort of make attrition work like this. 2. Okay. Okay, so they're now being trunched. Slowly losing the ability to even stand a chance of attacking this, getting a DR, because they can't attack. I think I'm going to go for it. I think I'm going to go for it. I'm going to attack into there, because if you look at the map, it's on a road. They need a good die roll. Well, now they've lost their dug-inness, but they have caused an attrition on that unit. Well, it's now Libya Dawn coalition. Now, what I'm going to do here is sort of a bit of another role play. I'm going to move these units out. The reason I'm doing that is because they quite often let the enemy run away, so to speak. And then I'm going to, because obviously I could do it, I could have not have done that, and then I'm going to do an assault now. I feel, it's a video, so I'm going to go for it. Obviously we know I can just sit there probably doing the attrition and slowly whittle them down, but they've already been whittled down, so let's see what we can get here on the odds. 3-to-1 and a DR, which obviously forced them out of the airport. Now in this sense, what I was going to do if they didn't get that DR, they were going to leave anyway, but they would have been eliminated, and that's not what happened historically, so I haven't reflected that. They've got some movement, so they're going to go in and trash the airport. Now one thing that is missing here as well, I have to go back, it's not an objective, it's not red or green, so I'll have to maybe go back and deal with that in the core scenario. they can't move because it's through deserts. They could do it because they're on the road. They're going to leave those there because they're creating a nice front line. And they're going to run back now to Tripoli. Question 6, so they're pretty damaged. I'm going to put 2 in there. And 2 in there. Okay, so they've now basically destroyed the airport. And now I'm going to advance on Tripoli. I think I can get there. Nope. Okay. Well, I want to try and recover. Just point of note, there's Mitaga International Airport, or what was more of a regional airport I think at the time, and that's where the flights are going in and out of Tripoli now. I think there's really not a lot of option but to at least try and create a front line with some reserves. Okay, so now it's almost the same position. I think we're just going to go straight for an assault. I don't think we can lose really. I wonder if we can. Five to 1 DR. We are lucky on the DR. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. I think, obviously, I think it looks as though mathematically it's probably going to be unlikely that the Zintani brigades will be able to prevent Tripoli from falling. So I might adjust that by adding a few more of these Libyan National Army units. Maybe reduce some of these. But essentially, this is a scenario that clearly, details the Battle of Tripoli Airport, which is an international airport that essentially was completely destroyed in their civil war, which in its own right makes it is a sort of a notable feature. But it's not particularly a strategic thing that you can sort of say, well, this is interesting strategically. I mean, one of the things to possibly note on it, it's out here, and now if you look at the geography of the area, it's possibly a little more built up out here, and this is not sort of vast open desert. I mean, obviously there's Al Swaini, which is probably more of a suburb of Tripoli. Tajura is probably in Janzawa. I mean, there's not sort of like a clear defined city limit here, but this is probably where, this represents, the city proper. So but even so, it's still away from the city. It's an airport that's been built outside of Tripoli, and essentially in this situation has made it quite an easy target. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. Learned a little bit about the Battle of Tripoli Airport and Libyan history 2014. Obviously, as I said, I'll probably make some changes as discussed during the video. So, but you know, you might find that you want to sort of go through that yourself, and if so, you can play it online once you're a member and signed up and all that, and educate and have fun. Educate yourself and have fun in the process, so to speak. Okay, I'll speak to you later. Cheers, mate.